Ooh, welcome back to Gangs All Here. It's our New York Jets podcast from the New York Post. I am Jake Brown alongside my co-host, Brian Costello. Joining us later in the program will be friend of the program, former Jets offensive lineman, SNY Jets pre- and post-game analyst. You could catch him also on Mad Dog Sports Radio on Morning Men. That is the big fella out of Hofstra, Willie Colon. Will stop by later. The month of December is here, Kaz. As we drop this episode on December 1st of Gangs All Here, we said before the season started for the Jets, what did we say? Be in the graphic in the month of December. Well, that's the goal for the season, and it wouldn't be another season after Thanksgiving where games don't matter and we're checking Tankathon every Sunday. They're not in the graphic, Kaz. They're in the playoffs for now. We're hoping for in the hunt. Instead, they're the 7th seed and holding on to the final playoff spot. At 7-4, this team's been fun to watch. They've been competitive. They're playing behind one of the best defenses, a quarterback change, and now they're led by Mike Effin White. And a new season begins this week in Minnesota. 6 games to play, 2 tough ones against Minnesota and Buffalo, 2 more playoff teams in Miami and Seattle later on, Lions and Jaguars mixed in between. But, Kaz, all they got to do is 3-3. It's not a lot to ask to be in the hunt for a spot. We'll see how the tiebreakers play out. We'll talk about all that. But this team finally has a chance to end the longest playoff drought in the NFL. It's a dozen years of waiting. It's been long enough. It's time Saleh and the Jets start a new era of winning football. It's been long awaited, and it begins in Minnesota on Sunday.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
I'm glad the stadium is indoors in Minnesota. Have you looked at the weather, Jake?
What's it, like 4 degrees there? I haven't checked the Minnesota weather because it's irrelevant for me not being there.
High of 18 on Saturday, Jake. I think this is a stay in the hotel weekend in Minneapolis. So
it's not like you're usually out and about hitting the strip club on Saturday night anyway, Kyle.
I usually go to a nice dinner. You go to go to a good dinner, and
so you wouldn't even go out for dinner. You're gonna do room service this Saturday.
I don't know. 18 degrees. Room service really doesn't exist post COVID. I've noticed they haven't brought that back. Yeah, you can get like takeout from the restaurant, but there's like the old style room service coming to you on the tray. I have not seen that post COVID anywhere. Yeah. I'm sure it's some high scale hotels that I'm not allowed to stay at. They do that.
They don't put you in the Ritz-Carlton. They leave the lights on for you at the Red Roof Inn.
Yeah. No. But yeah, I haven't seen that. So yeah, so that's my initial thought, Jake. I'm grateful that this is indoors. And hopefully there's some indoor walkways in Minneapolis to get to the game. But yeah, here we are, Jake. December. It's funny. I looked back at the transcript from March when Joe Douglas said the December, playing meaningful games in December quote. And it was my question, Jake. I created that. I said to him, I said, is a reasonable goal for this team, if you get the draft right, because this was in March, to be playing meaningful games in December? And he ran with it. So I was like, wow.
Pulitzer Prize winning journalism.
You're always trying to bait them into saying they're a playoff team. That never works. But this one, I got the December meaningful games. I think Fred Wilpon said that many years ago about the Mets with meaningful games in September. So, here we go. And I think, 4 road games out of 6. The 2 home games look like they should be wins, but you never know. The Lions are playing better. Jaguars have something going on right now. So it's going to be an interesting stretch of games here, Jake, for once. Like you said, it's been a while. It's been since 2015. Where we've had this, because if you I looked at the record through 11 games from 16 on, and there's a lot of 3-8s and 4-7s and an 0-11 in there. So been a while since they've had a winning record going into December.
It's a dozen years. I'm going to bring a dozen donuts in whatever road game press box if they make the playoffs, just for us guys, just for the New York Post people. Only if it's in Miami. I think that's the only place. I might travel to Nashville. I know I'm looking far ahead here, but as I look towards the playoff teams, probably do Nashville. I know Hearts would be in to go to Nashville.
How about Buffalo?
Hit a little Tootsies on a Saturday night. Buffalo is tough. I know some people there, but I don't know if I have any interest in being outside there. Nashville is doable outside. Miami's very doable outside. Kansas City, I could stay at Lawrence Tynes' house, I guess. Stay with the Tynes family there. Baltimore would be close. Do a little road trip will be cold, but I would do Baltimore. Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati and Buffalo would be the two places I would not go. The other ones, I think I would travel for the playoffs and we'll make it happen. Well, that's down the road. And you mentioned it. None of these are cookies because the Jaguars have a quarterback and the Lions have a quarterback in Jared Goff. So those are two not easy games either. It starts in Minnesota. The sentiment around the team this week, Kaz, we kind of saw it after Mike White's performance on Sunday. This is a full week of practice knowing who QB1 is. It seems like the spirits are uplifted. You've been there. What's the sentiment around one Jets drive?
Well, I haven't been in the locker room yet, Jake, when we're recording this. So it's Wednesday. It's just starting. But all year they've been upbeat. Like this has been a very upbeat locker room. I haven't seen them get down at all the entire season. So I don't think that's going to change. They got a lot of youth. I think that helps them. A lot of guys don't know what they don't know in that locker room, and they've got a good mix and then some veterans in there. So I think the attitude will be good. And they knew all week last week. Like they had a full week with Mike White last week because the week starts on Wednesday for the NFL. So they, I think they'll be excited and ready to go. I'm sure they're pumped up about playing meaningful games in December, just like the fans are pumped up about watching them.
Yeah, and I'll push back to your comments the other day and some of the media comments about Mike White because I think you can't overlook what he did in those conditions. Considering Zach complained about wind the week before, it was downpouring that whole day. And this is still the NFL. I know the Bears defense sucked, but these are NFL players. It's not like they went up against the XFL team, despite the roster not looking great. And when we look back at last year and say, you know what, he gave up the terrible game against the Bills. Look what he did after the Cincinnati game. That was a terrible Jets team, a Jets team that in the stretch that Mike played, 54, 31, 45, 45 points. Those were defenses that were not putting him in the game and giving him a chance to win. I think he doesn't need to do what he had to do in those games. And he's also got more talent. He's got Garrett Wilson, a legit number one guy, and he's got a couple tight ends. He was throwing a Ryan Griffin last year. This year, he's got Tyler Conklin. He's got CJ Uzomah. He's got another receiver in Denzel Mims, who's had some life finally this year. So I'm going to throw last year out the window, besides the great Bengals game, and say that Mike White deserves a lot of credit.
Besides that one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
the ultimate cherry pick right there.
Yeah, well,
same defense played in that game, right? Same receivers played in that game. Right?
And the defense gave up 31 that game. So the defense was just atrocious. So I think this is a new Mike White, a better team and a better defense. And I think we're going to see it Sunday. A tough test in Minnesota.
Well, the
I know the
Vikings
defense isn't great, but
I
get that. But we can't use that as an excuse. This is a 9-2 football team.
He should put up a lot of yards. He should put up 300 yards in this game. He should throw touchdowns in this game.
But I don't want that to be the excuse, Kaz. If he does on Sunday's postgame, be like, he did what he should. I think he deserves a lot more credit than you're giving him.
Okay. We'll see.
Now, if he beats Buffalo, I know you're going to give him credit. That's a tough one in Buffalo.
That's a good defense. Yeah, this defense stinks.
Well,
this is all about the Jets defense and can they stop a good Vikings offense? And the Vikings are a weird team. Every one of their wins except one is by one score. Mm-hmm. Their point differential is +4 or +5. In comparison, the Jets' point differential is +34. So the Jets by point differential are a better team than the Vikings. Now, Robert Saleh pointed out today, the Vikings have beaten every team in the AFC East except the Jets so far. They're going for the sweep in the AFC East. They played the Dolphins without Tua, which was a little different. Mm-hmm. But they did beat the Patriots on Thanksgiving, and they beat the Bills in that epic game a few weeks ago. So they're an interesting team. This could come down to being a shootout, if the Jets defense can't contain that Vikings offense.
And we'll make our predictions in a little bit. But remember, this is still a Vikings defense that has some guy named Patrick Peterson and a potential future Hall of Famer.
What is he, 48 years old at this point?
Listen, he could still play. He's older, but he could still play. And they have, good run stoppers and Hunter. They got good linebackers, Zadarius Smith and Jordan Hicks. Like this, these aren't a bunch of bums, and it's a 9-2 team.
They're better than the Bears. They're better defense than the Bears
by a long shot. Yeah.
But they play. I mean, they play right into Mike White's hands. They play a cover 2. They just don't want to get beat deep. They're going to give up a ton of underneath stuff. He can throw to the running backs and the tight ends all day if he wants to. So that's what White does. The question with Mike White is, can he throw a deep ball? right? We haven't seen him do it. Like when he's won games, it's been intermediate, short to intermediate throws. That's the Bills defense could test him there, but the Vikings defense is not going to. They're going to give up a lot of yards and then try to keep them out of the end zone. That's their game.
First throw of the game, play action, Garrett Wilson deep bomb. Let's do it. Let's just catch him off guard quick and early, and that's going to be the matchup really. Peterson versus Wilson. It's going to be fun to see, and like you said, the Vikings, they haven't blown anyone out. All their games are close. No. And it shows their defense is bad because the Jets held Mac Jones to nothing. Essentially, they gave up 382 yards and 2 touchdowns to Mac Jones in that Thanksgiving shootout.
You just pointed out it was windy that day, though, when Mac Jones played the Jets.
Yeah. So he's got an excuse. Yes. I love the excuse makers. What's worse, you think? The downpour rain at MetLife or the wind in New England?
Wind is worse. Yeah. Okay. The wind's worse. Yeah. Because I wasn't outside for the downpour. But I was talking to somebody who was there and said it didn't get back to like the fourth quarter. It got windy, and that's when it got real ugly there. And if you notice, the Jets didn't have to throw; they were up by a lot, but they didn't throw much late in that game. They kind of went just running the ball.
It wasn't a sea of green at MetLife; it was a sea of ponchos. I've never seen so many people wear ponchos in my entire life. Not a big poncho guy, to be honest. I'd rather my clothes just get wet. I just think ponchos, it's like you're wearing a garbage, like you're just a bum. Like I'm not team ponchos. I get why people do it. They don't want to ruin their clothes. I'll throw my clothes in the wash. Anyway, we'll talk laundry when the Jets are out of the playoff race. They're in it right now, and I'm excited for this game. All right, injury report before we preview this game, make our picks. Low ankle sprain, luckily for Michael Carter. Didn't practice Wednesday. What do you think, Kaz? My gut says that he's not going to play on Sunday.
Yeah, it's early right now, but yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think he's going to play. I think it's unlikely. I think they'll give him a week, and then he'll probably be back next week.
Offensive line. Now, Mitchell was ready last week, right? And they didn't go with him. Is Max Mitchell taking Big Cedric's spot this week?
Yeah, well, Cedric didn't practice either. He has a groin injury. So yeah, it's going to be Max Mitchell, I think, at right tackle. And we'll see. George Fant, I think, could be activated for this game.
Wow.
But I don't think he'd start right away. They probably have him as the backup for both right and left tackle right now.
So then what's the starting O-line in your predicament Sunday?
Will be Brown from left to right, Brown, then Tomlinson, McGovern, Herbig, and Mitchell.
Okay, that's respectable. I'm a fan. I like it. And another surprise, we thought he might miss some more time. It seems like Sheldon Rankins could be back this week.
Yeah, he's limited Wednesday, so we'll see. He had a big brace on his elbow. But yeah, it looks like he might be able to come back after missing he missed just 1 game, 2 games? He missed 2 games, right? He missed the Patriots and the Bears. So yeah, he could be back.
And that'll be big against, an elite running back in Dalvin Cook, who, by the way, didn't do much against the Patriots. He carried it 22 times for 42 yards. So Dalvin Cook is a great player. Last few games, as someone who ended up trading him in fantasy, has not been very good lately. So we'll see what they get out of him. And then looks like this could be the Bam Night show. Now, does James Robinson, if Michael Carter's out, get some carries, or are we going to see mostly Bam and Ty Johnson this week? What do you think?
I think Robinson gets a little bit. I think he'll have a role, but I think, Bam Knight has earned a bigger role, and I think you'll see that this week. I think if Carter's out, Bam will be the lead back in my estimation.
The Bam Knight show, 103 total yards in his debut. Now we get to see him against a much better rushing defense. Excited to see what this kid's got, because I love some of his, I believe he talked with Janae Coakley after, or he talked with one of the reporters after, and just talked about his demeanor and like never giving up, never going down, and trying to just keep running with the ball. And this guy breaks tackles. His yat, I don't know, yards after contact. That's right. His yak is incredible, and it was a lot better in that one game than we saw from the likes of Robinson and Carter. So looking forward to seeing the Bam Night show. In quick other news, the Jets-Bills game will stay at 1:00. What was the deal with this? CBS purchased the rights to keep the game, and they flex Dolphins Chargers instead?
Networks can protect games, Jake. I don't know. I can't remember the numbers, but CBS protected it. So you get to pick a certain number of games you can protect, and they can't be flexed. So that was one of them. I think the one to watch now is Jets Seahawks on New Year's Day. Obviously, there's a long way to go, but if both teams stay in the thick of this, that game could be a primetime game for the Jets.
Gives you a little more time to recover from the impending hangover on New Year's, which is nicely done by the NFL there for Jets fans. And Kaz, Jets-Vikings, 1:00. The Jets went from Spiro Ditas to games being protected by CBS. What a turn of events. Sunday, 1 p.m., U.S. Bank Stadium, Minnesota. My favorite duo, Iron Eagle, Charles Davis on the call. The Jets have come a long way from the C and D broadcast teams. They are on the A team at 1:00, and Vikings are 3-point favorites. Finally, the Jets essentially being called even against the 9-2 Vikings as the home team gets 3 points. Vegas is now putting respect on the name of the Jets and the name of Mike White. The over-under is 45 points. 9-2 Vikings, 7-4 Jets. Kaz, break the game down. Make your prediction.
I think it comes down to, Jake, like I said, I think it's going to be the Jets defense versus the Vikings offense. Can they slow them down? Can they slow Justin Jefferson down? Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook. This is a good offense. And I think the Jets offense will be able to have success against the Vikings defense. I think they'll be able to move the ball. So to me, this could be a shootout, Jake, because the Jets defense has been great this year, and they really haven't had one letdown game yet. And I'm wondering if this is it. It sort of looked like it was going to be against the Bears, first 2 drives, and then they snapped out of it. And they weren't, the Patriots game was so weird. They gave up a lot of yards in that game, and they missed a lot of tackles. But then they would find a way on 3rd down to knock them out of the red zone. And Nick Folk missed 2 field goals in windy conditions, or that might have been 9-3, and they wouldn't need the punt return. So the defense has kind of showed some signs, I think, lately, Jacob. There might be a dud coming, so I think this could be the one. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. I don't have a score for you though, Jake. I haven't thought about the score, but I think this could be like a high scoring game, like in the 30s. I think somewhere in there.
So you're gonna say like a 34-31? You think the Jets?
Yeah, something like that.
Or?
Yeah. No, I'll take I won't middle it. I'll take the Vikings to cover, but I think both teams could score in the 30s.
So you're not buying the half point and taking the Jets plus 3.5.
I'll go Vikings cover.
Well, I am. The Jets going up against a terrible passing defense. Mike White's going to have a day. It's going to be the Bam White show. Sauce Gardner, 14 passes defended, most of the NFL. I think someone's got to contain Justin Jefferson. Just like you said, someone's got to beat the Jets defense. I think the Jets defense has a good chance here against Justin Jefferson. He's been hot. Listen, he is just sizzling hot right now. He had a huge game, 9 for 139 against the Pats and a touchdown on Thanksgiving. I like DJ Reed going up against Thielen. The Jets, Kaz, have held wide receivers to the 3rd lowest rating in the NFL. And guess what? The Vikings, a good tight end team led by TJ Hawkinson. The Jets, 0 touchdowns allowed to tight ends all year long. 4 interceptions when balls are going to tight ends, so they can contain the middle of the field. They got 2 corners on the outside of the field, and they're going to attack Kirk Cousins. You know it's coming, and when they do, it's going to be pain for that offense. The Jets, 86 QB hits. That's 2nd in the NFL. Dalvin Cook is not doing much lately. He's in a dry spell. And Andrew Booth, backup cornerback, injured for the Vikings. They are down another man in a depleted secondary. Jets win this one in Minnesota. The Mike White show goes on. Jets 27, Vikings 24. And then the Jets are 2 wins away from the magical 10-win mark. I think this matchup favors them. And like you said, the Vikings, every game they're in is a close one. So I don't think this is going to be a blowout. It's going to come down to a big field goal. And there are no conditions to worry or complain about this week. It's in the Dome. Jets win 27-24. Well, we'll look ahead to Jets-Vikings and talk about this O-line. We'll talk Mike White with our guest, and that's Willie Colon joining Gangs All Here next. All righty, joining us now on Gangs All Here, Jake Brown here is friend of the program, former Jets offensive lineman, SNY Jets pre- and post-game analyst, and you could hear him on SiriusXM Mad Dog Sports Radio on Morning Men. Hofstra alum Willie Colon is in the building. Willie, you're hitting 40. You just got out of the gym. You're sweating like a dog. How you feeling right now?
I feel great. I'm in the process of trying to be a better multitasker. So as I'm doing this, I'm texting the wife, telling her I'm talking to you, while she's telling me, make sure you turn off the lights and take out the big piece of chicken. So it's an interesting day for me right now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, are you do you ever cook? Are you cook mostly? Your wife cook? How does
You
it
know,
work?
I can cook. I've gotten better because my wife is there to kind of tell me how bad my cooking is. So after she tells me how bad my cooking is, she usually jumps behind and kind of walks me through what I should have did right instead of what I did wrong. So that's what wives are for. They're there to critique, destroy your life, and then love you at the same time.
I love that. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
My healthy thing is I make a little salmon twice a week, but it gets expensive. Like everyone's like eating home is
Food's
cheap.
expensive. Healthy food is really expensive.
Yeah. Well, one guy who's not expensive is Mike White. He's pretty cheap. Boom. That's why they pay me the big bucks. He's very affordable, unlike Zach Wilson. This dynamic of changing quarterbacks, you kind of went through it a little bit with Geno Smith to Ryan Fitzpatrick, although it wasn't in the middle of the season. Take us through that time and this time for the Jets at quarterback.
Well, the Geno and Fitzpatrick situation was unique because we also during that process had Michael Vick, right? And so it was a weird transition because Geno was going into his second year, second or third year, and then the whole locker room situation happened, right? And then here comes Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Fitz, I think if you were to ask him, he was there to just service a role. I don't think he necessarily thought as himself as a starter. He knew, he had been through that kind of merry-go-round before. So I think he's like, hey, when you need me, tap my shoulder. And we needed him a lot sooner than we expected. And when he got in, just like Mike White, his calming presence, his ability to know where to go with the football, pre-snap recognition, his overall fundamentals jumped off the screen. And when you have a quarterback who's calm, decisive, and deliberate, it sets a tone within the offense. And I think that's what Mike White has done, or that's what he has shown thus far. Even if you go back to last year when Zach got hurt, when he was able to jump in for that Bengals game, you can tell there was a poise about him. There was a sense of like, I got this. You just, everybody does their job and we'll get out of this safely. And he even showed it against the Bears. Now, the Bears are the Bears. They're not a very good team. Their defense is a little bit all over the place. They lost two guys to IR after the end of that game. But what Mike White was able to show you that the offense works when you play within the offense, right? And we saw that last year. Think about it. When Mike played, then it was Flacco, then it was Josh Johnson. All three quarterbacks lit it up when they got in there. Even Josh towards the game he played, he had like 300 and something yards within the offense. It scratches your head because if you see three quarterbacks play within the same offense, do what they're told, and play within a manner, it's like, all right, well, we just drafted a kid to be the future. Why can't he do that? And then to Zach's credit, when he did get back in, he was great. He was solid, especially against Tampa. And then, obviously he goes into this game this year and he has a little bit of a setback because of the injury. And then when he comes back, he looks like he's starting to get his wits about him. He's starting to play better. I think right now, just to break it down, I think Mike is the right quarterback for right now. That doesn't mean Zach Wilson isn't the quarterback for the future. I think sometimes you have to sit back and digest, show some humility, see how things work, and go according to plan, and things will work out for you. But I think the way this team has evolved ahead of schedule, I think Mike White is the guy for the Jets right now. Now, does that mean is he not the quarterback for the future? I don't know. But I think it's ultimately Mike White's job to lose and win.
It is interesting because no one has looked at the fact of what if Mike White is the guy and Zach Wilson is not, because the draft stock 171st versus second pick. What if White is the guy and you got to send Zach Wilson packing? Now, I don't know if you'd even be able to trade him for a bag of peanuts right now, but that's not a situation that anyone talks about because everyone just writes off Mike White because of where he got picked and where he went to school.
Well, honestly, I mean, two scenarios here. It's not like the Jets haven't been here before, right? I mean, they sent a lot of a lot of their first-round quarterbacks packing, right? You're talking about from Geno to Sam Darnold and now Zach. So I think Jets fans are they've built a callus for this type of situation. However, you are right. just because a guy comes out of the 5th round out of Western Kentucky doesn't mean that he can't get the job done. We've seen, I mean, Christ, look at where Romo came from, right? And Romo, you arguably can say, had a Hall of Fame career. Look at Kurt Warner. Look at right now Taylor Heineke. You know what I mean? I always mess his name up. Out of Old Dominion. So it's not like a mid-level, small-time quarterback can't come out and do the job and do it at a high level. I believe Mike White just understands what to do with the football. I think he cares enough. I think he shows enough humility. I think he's fundamentally sound, and he has a piece within the offense. Now, Minnesota's a different juggernaut, right? They're a better defense, better team. They got some superstars on both sides of the ball. So it's going to be a big test to see if the Jets can handle that type of outfit come Sunday.
Yeah, and you're already seeing, again, the naysayers, Chicago, I get it, that's a bad defense. Minnesota, worst passing defense in the league. This is still a 9-2 team in my estimation that has some players on defense. They're not a bunch of, nobodies on defense. No. It's a good football team. They're 9-2. Do you expect Mike to keep the train rolling? Kaz said the Vikings are going to win because he expects the Jets defense to finally have a letdown. What do you expect out of this game?
I mean, the Jets have been solid on the road this year. You know what I mean? And I think right now, this team, what's interesting about this team, they don't know what they don't know. They're just going out there and playing. And I said this yesterday when I was talking to Connor Rogers, who's been doing a great job with this on pre and post. I said the Jets are finally at a point, and this is more indicative to the Bears game, where because of the conditions, because of a bad team, their talent is pulling them through, right? Like normally you can say the Jets didn't have enough talent, or if they had a bad day, they was going to lose because they just couldn't get it done. They were playing okay on defense, but they had so much talent that the talent actually won that game for them, right? And that hasn't always been indicative to who the Jets were in the past. So I think right now this Jets team, I think they are riding a high horse. I think they believe in Mike White. I think they believe in each other. They're young. They have that swag to them. I really appreciate it right now. And so, yeah, I have the Jets. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets go in there and get the dub. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised by that. What I am cautious about is there's a lot of rookies right now who haven't gone this far into the season, and you got to worry about the rookie wall. And you're looking at guys like Sauce Gardner. You're looking at other people, other guys. Elijah Red Tucker's obviously hurt and whatever, but you're looking at some guys who just really haven't gone the distance. So this time of year is where you have to start leaning on the quality of your depth, which we have and which we have seen. The fact that Max Mitchell is back at right tackle, huge. I love that kid to death because he's scrappy, he's gritty, he's raw in some areas, but he's going to give you 110% every time he's on the field. You talk about Nate Herbig, what he means to that right guard spot when he's healthy. You talk about the fact that we have 4 running backs, honestly, with Bam Knight and Ty and Michael Carter and James Robinson, that if things don't go if things don't pan out, you can lean on the run game, which I think is the identity of this team, honestly. I know Mike White can sling it, but when we're pounding the rock and letting our defense, play bully ball, we're a damn good outfit. So hopefully we get back to that a little bit.
As an offensive lineman, speak to that a little bit, because when this team goes on their 4th to 5th offensive tackle, now Big Cedric, we always say Big Cedric because we can't say his last. Ogbuehi,
yeah.
Ogbuehi.
Me and Bart, you should see me and Bart say it. We tear it up.
Ogbuehi, is that French? Yeah. Bonjour, monsieur. Cedric now hurt. Like, that's not an easy job for a guy like Max Mitchell to come in, for Cedric to come in, for all these guys to fill in, and Nate Herbig, who doesn't really anyone ever mentions. How hard is that in the middle of the season to develop this cohesiveness, and how well has this Jets offensive line done it?
Well, I think multiple things. I think one, you got to credit Dwayne Brown for being the I guess the big dog in the room, a guy who's played at a high level for multiple teams, who understands the league, understands what it means to play in a playoff, and just having that veteran leadership to look to when your star player Elijah Vera Tucker goes down, when Mekhi Becton, who's supposed to be the staple within your franchise, goes down, Connor McGovern, who doesn't get enough credit, who's a little bit of a journeyman, has been playing stellar himself. So you have two key pieces, and like Lynn Thomason, who's played for a damn good 49ers team and balled out. So when you have those multitude of pieces, it's easy for young guys and even guys who haven't got a lot of quality to say, all right, I just need an example on how to do my job and how to perform like a professional. And they have those examples. I had those examples when I was in the league. I had guys like Alan Faneca to look at and watch how he was in the weight room, study, practice, prepare for games, played within games, how he recovered. Just having those examples in multiple facets helped me kind of prep myself on how to be the best I needed to be on the field. And so now guys like Max Mitchell, Nate Herbig, on and on, these guys have examples to lean on and see. And so when you have that, it's easy to kind of just march, right? But when you and even the team my time with the Jets, I thought certain units didn't have that example, and that's why things went awry. You know what I mean? And so you don't have that with this offensive line unit. There's multiple guys in that room who've played enough football and understand what it means to be a pro and be a pro at a high level.
Mentally, for an offensive line, Willie, and for the offense, when you make a quarterback change and see instant success, what does that do to your mentality? Because as an offensive lineman, those guys, you can't be playing 110% when your quarterback is throwing the ball all over the place to nobody in particular, incompletions, taking sacks. When Mike comes in there, bing, bang, boom, and is hitting all the guys, that has to play a factor mentally for these guys. And they not that they want to play harder. You're always going to play 100%, but mentally there's got to be something different there for the offensive linemen, for these running backs, for these receivers, obviously with Elijah Moore, who we know how much he loves Mike White and anyone else besides Zach Wilson. That's the only time he produces. It's got to play a factor mentally.
Well, I think the thing about what Mike was able to do within the offense Sunday was he was able to be efficient. And when you're able to be efficient, you're able to set a rhythm. And when you're able to set a rhythm, that means guys don't have to think. They're just rolling off the ball and they're playing fast and they're not thinking or they're not second guessing or they're not worried about every little other thing other than doing their job. And I think it's tough because we have to understand that Zach Wilson is only in his second year, right? And at the same time, I can tell you from firsthand experience, and I put my hand up at this, I didn't feel like a pro until my third or fourth year, where I feel like I really got it. You know what I mean? And I didn't have the ball in my hand. So I do have some empathy for guys in that situation, how much the world is on their shoulders and how to have to be perfect and how to, just not perfect, but just do the right things, because every time the ball's in your hand, you got the city in your hand. You got the franchise in your hand, right? So there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. But I think from an offensive line standpoint, when you do have somebody to come in there and it just happens to be on time with the football, has a calm about him, has a pace about him, and has a little bit of know-how on how to run the offense, it definitely takes the pressure off our shoulders from the standpoint where we're like, all right, we just keep him upright, he's going to take care of the rest. We don't have to worry about the scrambling. We don't have to worry about, if this ball gets tipped, it's coming back the other way. We don't worry about because a lot of times when a quarterback throws an interception, it's easy for the outside to say, well, he threw that ball there, that's why they got. But from an offensive line standpoint, we immediately check the protection, running backs and all. Like, why did that happen? Was he rushed? Was he pressured? Was it pocket collapse? Did a guy get his hands up? So we immediately check ourselves on why that interception happens. We don't necessarily blame the quarterback for that interception, because sometimes if a guy's sitting in the pocket and he's forced to throw the ball early and it's a misread. Well, what caused that? So we immediately checking within ourselves. And I think for the offensive line, especially this offensive line, I think they realize that when you have Mike White in the game and you're rolling the way they're rolling, that means the defense gets hungrier and better. And I think that's just complementary football. And I think that's what we was able to see Sunday. When you all three phases, even go back to the Patriots game. I thought they besides the offense not doing anything that day, they were playing complementary football. Special teams just had one bad punt that ultimately ended the game for them. But ultimately, if you go back to that tape, defense played lights out. We gave up some sacks up front. I thought we got a little murky in the middle at times. But nevertheless, even on the edges. But I thought we were scrappy. We were banging. We were just having one of them days, and Zach couldn't get it going. But I think the offensive line know who's the guy right now, and it's just a matter of just continuing to play at a high level.
You're a teammate of Zach. You hear what he said after the game, not taking accountability. What's your reaction in the locker room as a teammate?
A lot was made of that. I'm not necessarily sure I would have took it personal. That's just me, and maybe I should. I don't know, but I just know necessarily. That wouldn't have bothered me. What have bothered me was the fact that he wasn't pulled during that game, and I stated that on pre and post because I feel like the Jets were playing like the damn '85 Bears that game in New England, and there's like, as athletes, the field is our office. Everybody has an office, and some days you're gonna have a bad day at the office. I felt like Sunday was a bad day at the office for Zach Wilson. I also feel like as Robert Saleh sat there for 4 quarters, watch this man struggle, watch this offensive unit, remain stagnant. How not some part of you goes, I need to change, right? Because I can remember I've had a game like that when we was in San Diego, and Mike Vick was on the team, and Geno started that game. Came out in the second half with Mike Vick, and Vick didn't prepare that well. They didn't give him a lot of reps that week, right? It was all going to be Geno, and then halftime, Rex runs in the locker room and goes, hey, I can't take it no more. Vic, suit up. We just need something. We need a spark. And we didn't. And in the second half, I remember our eyes lit like, oh, finally we get Vic, right? And then now it's on. We're about to run again. That didn't happen. San Diego continued to kick our ass for the rest of the quarter, for the remaining 2 quarters. But I say that to say that athletes are going to have bad days at the office. If your ace is allowed to get pulled by the skip and a relief comes in, why can't it happen in football? You know what I mean? Doesn't mean a guy can't come back the next week. I just feel like we sometimes we pull it. We have this mindset that if you pull a quarterback, that means you're sitting them for the rest of the year. No, you just had a bad game, kid. We watch Belichick pull guys all the time, and they're back in the lineup. So I don't feel like, if you pull a guy, that doesn't mean you can't go back to him right away. It just means like, hey, you got to win this game. They had an opportunity to win that game, which would let them first place in the division. It was just a big game. And I felt like Saleh let that go instead of responding in a moment.
I think it's 2 different coaches too, Willie. I think Saleh is very much a player's coach. I don't know if he has the mentality even to do that to a guy, and maybe he worries that he doesn't come back from that. So I think that just depends sometimes on the coach. We see it with Daboll screaming his head off at a guy if they do something wrong. I don't see that as much in games from Saleh. You agree with that?
Well, I do agree he's a player's coach. You can tell that he individually cares about every man in a helmet. I do think he has somewhat of a relationship with different guys in that locker room. You can kind of see it. You can hear it by when he speaks about certain guys. But I have to go back to the great Herm Edwards. You play to win the game. And sometimes you got to separate those type of emotions and those type of feelings, because at the end of the day, it's not about that one individual. It's about the game and winning that game for that week. And I can understand his sensitivity to Zach because Zach's a gunslinger, right? And if you take the confidence out of gunslinger, you're going to have the result what happened in New England, right? He was afraid to throw the ball downfield. He started blaming the weather conditions. Mind you, Mac Jones almost threw for 300 yards that game. You know what I mean? So it's like you don't want to remove the kind of the wild cowboy out the kid if you feel like that's going to happen if you bench him. So you kind of want to stay in the trenches with him. But at the same time, you have to understand it's not about Zach, it's about the team. And I think that's why Mike White starting was so significant, because now he told the locker room, like, all right, it's about us, right? Like, it's about us. It's about us moving forward. We're 7-4. We got a legit shot going to the playoffs. Let's go for this thing. And, I think Zach, this is the bottom line. One thing about the NFL and during, you're going to go through hard times and either makes you or break you. Him sitting the bench is either going to make him stronger or it's going to break him. And every athlete goes through moments like that, whether it's dealing with injuries, whether it's dealing with getting benched, whether it's dealing with personal issues off the field. You're always going to have that fork in the road. Some come earlier than others, some come later, but they do come. And I think this is Zach's moment.
And if it breaks him, Jimmy Garoppolo is in the wings as the swooning all the people of New York City. His face on every billboard in town, Willie. Like, he's the talk. You don't seem to be on the Jimmy G.
No. I'm a Jimmy G fan. I mean, he has the GQ look. He's a sexy individual. He's a stud. He wins no matter what you say about him. He's a winner. And this is his offense. Right? This is the offense of which he thrives in. So It just seems like 1, 2, 3 ABC, but it sucks for Mike White. It sucks because if he continues the ball and he carries this Jets team into the playoffs, why do we now continue to overlook Mike White? It's still a question. Like, I get Jimmy G, right? He's the Lamborghini that comes rolling in. Love it. But if Mike White is the Audi or the Porsche, who may be used, but it's still a Porsche, let's ride with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's not fix. Let's try to fix something that's not broken. If Mike White seems like he's the fit or he's a sexy thing for New York right now, right? Let's ride out with him. I don't understand what's the need. And that doesn't mean he can't. And Mike White's young, by the way. He's not an old quarterback. He's not a guy who in his 8th year. He's still young.
From a quarterback out of BYU getting Cougars to a little bit more of a veteran getting Cougars. Every Jets quarterback except Mike White's getting the Cougars. Mike White's getting the nice 25-year-old like Jewish girl who went to Yale, I think.
Mike White can get. Listen, I don't care what he gets, just win. You know what I mean? Like, I have so much empathy for Jets fans because they've been through it. They've been through the uglies and the dark times, and now they can. I'm watching my man right here with his hat backwards. That's Jets fans, right? Now they turning their hats to the front. Now they want you to see the Jet logo, right? They didn't want you to see.
Well, he's actually Andrew is a Giants fan, so.
But my point is, like, I just came back from Florida not too long ago, and I saw more Jets hats in the airport than I've seen in a long time. So, I mean, the fan base is starting to come back around. The old timers are starting to burning angle. They're starting to come out the grave, man. That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I'm in the streets of Astoria. I see Jets shirts. Like, yeah, let's go clap on Sundays. It's a feeling. And listen, the Mets, Jets, Knicks fan who went to Hofstra, got rid of her football team. It's been all downhill my entire life for me. So I'm looking to go on an upward swing here. It's not going to be easy here, Willie, and I'm worried Sunday. The tiebreakers are what worries me. You got Bills, Pats, Titans, Eagles, Broncos, Ravens, Dolphins, Niners, Chiefs, Bengals, Chargers, Raiders. Those are the games of importance Sunday. 10 wins might not do it, which is what scares me. You might have to win 11 if these other teams get to 10-7. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about if the Jets miss the playoffs.
You listen, those are all hypotheticals. It has nothing to do with the reality. The Jets are 7-4. They got to take it. I mean, they got 6 games remaining. Just win. And wherever the dice, wherever it rolls. Because right now, if you're Joe Douglas, if you're the powers that be in that building, you're ahead of schedule, which you couldn't say from years past, right? If any, to feel like we have a legit shot to go to the playoffs, to feel like, man, we finally have a defense, we finally have a secondary, to feel like we finally have an offensive line. It's good for Jets fans to tap back into the 08-09 season and feel like this may be the emergence of that. So if they don't make the playoffs, which I don't even want to talk that into existence because I feel like they got a legit shot to get in, you have a lot to hang your hat on, man. And it's just a matter of getting more pieces, acquiring more sexy pieces, kind of lift this team up and carry this team over the threshold. Because right now, this team they're exciting, they're young, they're enthusiastic. You don't hear the circus coming out of the locker room, right? You don't hear the rumblings of this guy and that guy and all that. You don't hear that no more. That's in the past. So I like where this team is at, man. I like the way Robert Saleh has his team running and gunning. And it's just about being positive and moving forward, man. There's no reason to continue to think about the what ifs. Just keep appreciating that they're winning. You can wear your Jets hat with pride around the city or wherever you're going. And now people are talking about the Jets in a different light. And that's a cool thing.
I'll close with this. Is it crazy if Mike White is a guy that this team can go on a run to a Super Bowl, or is that crazy talk? Because I think they have the talent. If he plays mistake-free, I know, I don't want to go down that far, but people are thinking about it. Like, can they go to a Super Bowl?
Listen, man, I haven't talked Super Bowl in New York so long that you almost tied my tongue up with that one. I don't know. I think right now we've seen teams get in and get hot. This can happen. I think the fact that the team is inexperienced helps them because there's no pressure of what we did. There's no resume in that regard. They're just going out there and slinging it and swinging for the fences, which helps, especially playoff time, because you see a lot of teams try to like reestablish themselves, or they try to do things within the playoffs that's kind of out of character. They don't have no character because they've never been there, right? So I think right now at this point, if you get in, go for it. Leave nothing. You know, just keep swinging and swinging. Bang the body, the head will fall. Whoever comes in your way, just knock them out. And that's just the way the Jets have to play football.
I like that. It's the Geno Smith, just knock him out in the face approach. I like that one. Well, let's hope the Jets do make it. It is great to wear a Jets hat again and be proud of this team. Would love to see them go on a run. Willie Colon, catch him on the SNY Jets pre and post game. Catch him on Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, co-hosting Morning Men and in the streets with Babchick singing songs for a penny. He didn't even think he got $1.
He got a quarter, right? He was horrible.
You should ask for $1. It shouldn't have been a quarter. That
the goal was the $1, and then some dude was like, "All I got is a quarter," and left it and walked away.
Yeah, with how bad his voice, I think that everyone was better
off. He deserved
for
the
that.
quarter. He sucked.
Will Cologne 66 on Twitter. Willie, let's go Jets, baby. Thanks for coming on.
Let's go Jets, baby. Just keep fighting.